Well, Blue Origin's New Glenn nailed the landing, and Team Blue is celebrating. But meanwhile, the customer who booked the ride is probably not having a great day. Their $23 million satellite is coming back to their hands. Yep, you heard that right. So how did today's New Glenn launch end up being a successful failure, and what exactly happened? Welcome to the space community. Today morning, April 19th, 2026, Blue Origin pushed forward one of its most important milestones yet as New Glenn lifted off once again from Launch Complex 36 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. This wasn't just another routine launch. It marked the third flight of the vehicle, and more importantly, a major step toward proving that reusable heavy-lift rockets can operate at a much faster and more reliable cadence than ever before. The launch window opened at 6:45 a.m. Eastern Time, but as with many missions, there was a brief hold in the countdown due to a minor technical issue. Once resolved, the vehicle proceeded toward liftoff, and at approximately 7:25 a.m., the 7BE-4 engines came to life, generating over 4.5 million pounds of thrust. From there, New Glenn began its climb to space, steadily accelerating as it cleared the tower and ascended into clear morning skies. Well, the early phase of flight went exactly as planned. Around 2 minutes in, the vehicle passed through max Q, the point of maximum aerodynamic stress, without any issues. Shortly thereafter, at roughly 3 minutes into the mission, the first stage, powered by its 7BE-4 engines, reached main engine cutoff, MECO, and separated smoothly from the rest of the stack. Immediately following stage separation, the second stage ignited its pair of BE-3U engines, taking over the job of accelerating the vehicle with its payload, AST SpaceMobile's BlueBird 7 satellite, into low Earth orbit. Up to this point, everything about the mission looked nearly flawless, following the expected timeline with precision. However, what happened next turned the mission into a mix of success and setbacks. While the upper stage continued its burn, attention quickly shifted back to the first stage as it began its descent for recovery. This booster, named Never Tell Me the Odds, was already flying for the second time, having previously been recovered during the NG3 mission in late 2025. As it re-entered the atmosphere, 3 BE-4 engines ignited to slow the vehicle down before transitioning to a single engine for the final landing phase. At around 8.5 minutes into flight, the booster broke through the cloud layer at high speed, beginning a controlled descent toward the droneship Jacklyn positioned in the Atlantic Ocean. What followed was one of the most controlled and visually impressive landing sequences seen from New Glenn so far. Rather than heading directly toward the droneship, the booster initially aimed slightly off to the side. This conservative approach was intentional, designed to reduce risk in case of any engine ignition issues. As it descended further, the vehicle hovered briefly, translating laterally toward the center of the platform. During this phase, its 6 landing legs deployed in a carefully timed sequence, taking roughly 8 seconds to fully extend and lock into place. Moments later, the booster touched down softly at around 9 minutes and 16 seconds into the mission, kicking up water and mist from the deck as it settled into position. So, the landing itself was remarkably clean. The booster remained upright with minimal visible damage, thanks in part to its thermal protection system and the cleaner combustion of its Methalox engines. Post-landing images showed intact structures, including fins and strakes, with only light discoloration from re-entry heating. Blue Origin also appears to have implemented a system to secure the booster to the droneship, using an energetic bonding mechanism, helping stabilize it in the open ocean. Overall, the recovery marked a significant achievement, especially considering this was only the second landing attempt for this class of vehicle, and the first reuse of a New Glenn booster. This rapid progression from NG2 to NG3 basically showed us how quickly Blue Origin is moving. The first flight served as a basic demonstration, the second introduced successful recovery, and now the third has proven reuse, all within a relatively short time frame. By refurbishing and reflying the same booster, the company is demonstrating its ability to shorten turnaround times, a key factor in achieving high launch cadence. At the same time, ongoing upgrades to the BE-4 engines and improvements to the upper stage are aimed at increasing performance and reliability, ensuring future missions can carry heavier payloads with greater consistency. Well, I know a lot of you were probably curious about how the other side would react to what was, in many ways, a pretty underrated New Glenn launch, and as it turns out, Elon Musk kept things surprisingly classy, congratulating both Jeff Bezos and the Blue Origin team on the milestone. To be fair, Elon's usually pretty supportive when it comes to real progress in spaceflight. The only time things tend to get a little entertaining is when Jeff decides to spice things up with a lawsuit. Because, apparently rockets aren't the only things launching these days.
By the way, if you want quick, deep spaceflight updates, join our community. It's completely free. Just hit subscribe and you're in.
So, despite the success with the booster, the mission was not without its challenges. After completing its burn, the second stage deployed the BlueBird 7 satellite as planned, and initial confirmation indicated that the spacecraft had powered on successfully. However, it soon became clear that something had gone wrong during orbital insertion. Instead of reaching the intended circular orbit at around 460 kilometers altitude, the satellite was placed into a significantly lower orbit. While the deployment itself was nominal, the altitude shortfall created a critical issue for the satellite's long-term operation. BlueBird 7 is part of AST SpaceMobile's next-generation constellation designed to provide direct-to-cell phone connectivity from space. These satellites are highly advanced, featuring large deployable arrays and sophisticated propulsion systems for maintaining their orbit over many years. However, those propulsion systems are not designed to compensate for major orbital errors. In this case, the satellite's onboard thrusters simply did not have the capacity to raise it from its lower-than-planned orbit to its intended operational altitude. As a result, atmospheric drag at that altitude will gradually pull the satellite back down, leading to its eventual re-entry. Despite this outcome, AST SpaceMobile confirmed that the satellite itself functioned correctly after separation and that communication was successfully established. The issue was purely related to the insertion orbit. The company also stated that the loss is fully insured and does not significantly impact its broader plans. Production of additional satellites is already underway, with multiple units scheduled for launch in the coming months as part of an aggressive deployment strategy. Blue Origin acknowledged the anomaly, confirming that while payload separation was successful, the orbit achieved was off-nominal. The company has begun investigating the issue, focusing on potential causes related to the upper stage engines, software, or propellant management during the burn. This marks the second instance of upper stage-related challenges for New Glenn, making it a key area of focus moving forward. Both Blue Origin and AST SpaceMobile emphasize that such setbacks are part of the development process, particularly for a new launch system. So basically, this mission represents both the promise and the complexity of modern spaceflight. On one hand, the successful booster landing and reuse demonstrates that Blue Origin is rapidly advancing toward operational reusability. On the other hand, the upper stage anomaly highlights how critical precision is when it comes to delivering payloads to their exact destinations. Even small deviations can have significant consequences, especially for satellites that rely on precise orbital parameters to function. Looking at the bigger picture, Blue Origin's progress is particularly interesting when compared to SpaceX's journey with Falcon 9. SpaceX spent years refining its landing techniques, experiencing multiple failures before achieving consistent success. Now, booster reuse has become routine, with rapid turnaround times enabling frequent launches. Blue Origin, entering this space later, appears to be accelerating through a similar learning curve at a faster pace. By its third flight, New Glenn has already achieved both landing and reuse, something that took SpaceX several years to fully establish. That said, reliability remains the ultimate goal. While booster recovery is a major milestone, delivering payloads accurately to orbit is what truly defines a launch system's success. Blue Origin's ability to resolve these upper stage issues will be critical as it works to build trust with customers and expand its launch manifest. The company's approach, focusing on hardware iteration, parallel development, and incremental improvements, suggests that these challenges will be addressed in upcoming missions. In many ways, this mission serves as a snapshot of where the industry is today. Reusability is no longer experimental. It's becoming standard practice. Companies are pushing toward higher launch cadence, lower costs, and more ambitious missions, from satellite constellations to lunar landers and beyond. At the same time, each launch still carries inherent risks, and even well-executed missions can encounter unexpected issues. Ultimately, NG3 can be seen as a meaningful step forward despite its mixed outcome. The booster's successful return and reuse demonstrate real progress towards sustainable launch operations, while the upper stage anomaly provides valuable data that will help refine the system. As Blue Origin continues to iterate and improve, future missions will likely build on these lessons, bringing the company closer to its goal of routine, reliable access to space. For now, the focus shifts to the next flight, where improvements to the upper stage will be tested and the path toward full mission success will continue. The foundation is clearly there, and with each launch, I think New Glenn is moving closer to becoming a fully operational and competitive heavy-lift rocket.
Thanks for watching today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for another great video tomorrow.